Hi, everyone. Welcome. Okay, so in this session, we're going to be talking about using flex forms and Groovy at Holland America. And in this session, I'm joined with Steve Wyatt from the Holland America Group. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so if this is your first session in this Hyperion conference, I'm just going to talk a little bit about argono-interroll. If you heard this 16 times already, I apologize, but I have to go through this. So we've been recognized 5 times as an Oracle EPM Partner of the Year, and we're definitely dominant. We're a dominant player in the EPM BI space with a slew of Oracle ACE and ACE directors and industry bloggers on staff. We definitely know the cloud as well as on-premise applications. So we offer a full stack of services, which includes strategy, consulting, infrastructure, training, press support, and so forth. Contact us if you need our services. We're so proud and excited of earning a 77% Net Promoter Score, which measures the likelihood that our customers recommend us to other companies. The industry average for system integrators is 24%, and we blow this measure away by 3.5 times. So here's our agenda for today, and we'll have time for Q&A session at the end. So first, we'll have an overview of Holland America Group's EPM Cloud implementation. Then we'll talk about flex forms and Groovy in EPM Cloud. And then we'll talk about how those two things are being used at Holland America Group. We ask that you use the Q&A box to fill in your questions at any time. So before we start, we'd like to introduce ourselves. Steve, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Wyatt. I'm a Senior Manager of Financial Planning Systems at Holland America Group. You see us refer to that as HA Group quite a bit. We'll use that terminology quite a bit. I've been working with Planning and Essbase since 2004, and for 4 years prior to that, using a tool called Brio, which was later renamed Hyperion Interactive Reporting. So most of my career has been revolving around Hyperion solutions. This particular slide describes me in a nutshell. My daughter attends the Western Washington University, which is the lower left-hand corner. There are the Vikings. My younger son, attends Montana State University as the Bobcats. My older son works for Fred Meyer, which is a locally Kroger brand. We are season ticket holders for Seattle Sounders FC. I attended University of Washington, alum there. We're proud supporters of both Seahawks and Seattle Mariners, and now the Seattle Kraken as well. We're big Star Wars fans, or at least most of my family is, and I really enjoy playing soccer. So a little more about this Hyperion Solutions Conference. So whenever I saw this come back about a year ago, that logo inspired a lot of nostalgia for me. I first attended my first Hyperion Solutions Conference, I think it was in 2005, which I believe was in New Orleans. At that time, they first started talking about version 7, which is supposed to be about 10 times faster than the previous version, which I think was 6.5. And there was also some new wizardry called ASO that was just being talked about. While at that conference, I attended an upstream. I was actually kind of snuck into that, an upstream party on Bourbon Street, and that was a riot. And of course, there's a lot of people that I've met throughout the years, and many of whom are some of my best friends. However, the word Hyperion actually has some bittersweet meaning to me. So the sweet part is everything I just described, going to all the conferences and most of my career. The bitter part is prior to me joining HA Group, they were fresh off the heels of a failed implementation of on-premise planning, Hyperion Planning and Essbase, which spanned a couple years and, as you can guess, cost a lot of money. So there's some deep wounds and scars across the organization whenever people use the word Hyperion. So we're actually trying to change the culture a bit and use the word EPM or Cloud EPM or Oracle Cloud EPM. Some people even told me that that project was nicknamed Preparation H, which is bad. All right, Josie, over to you.
All right. Okay, so I'm Josie Manzano-Stetler, and I am the Planning Practice Director for Argonaut Integral. I'm also the architect for the Holland America Group and their sister division across the pond, Carnival UK, for their EPM Cloud platforms. I currently reside in Austin, Texas, and these icons here or pictures here are like me in a nutshell for particularly this fall. I'm an alumnus from the Pac-12 South School, Southern Cal, and so often, jab at Steve a lot in terms of how our football teams are going. Nothing to brag about on both sides right now. I also spend most of my fall weekends traveling to USC home games. And before the pandemic, I was also a season ticket holder for the Rams football team. So I was traveling to LA a lot. All right. Okay, back to you, Steve.
Yeah, a little bit about Holland America Group. Holland America Group is made up of 4 cruise lines: Princess Cruises, Holland America Line, Seabourn, and P&O Cruises, which resides out of Australia. Next slide, please. We also have what's not considered part of our one of our brands, but we also have what we call HAP Alaska, which is our land-based operations out of Alaska. And Holland America Group is also part of the Carnival Corporation, which also has many, many other brands operating around the world. One of which Josie mentioned earlier is Carnival UK, which is based out of England. Next slide, please. So next couple slides, just a couple of about individual brands within our brand group. Holland America Line is made up of 11 ships. Rotterdam is the newest ship. That's a picture of the Rotterdam, and I won't read all these other ships. Next slide, please. This is Princess Cruises and all the ships for Princess. The newest ship is the Enchanted Princess, which that's a picture of, and the Discovery is coming next year. Next slide. This is Seabourn, which is our luxury cruise line, which is currently made up of 5 ships, and we have a couple of ships coming very soon, including the Venture and the Pursuit, which are going to have onboard submarines, which is very, very cool. Next slide. And then the last brand is P&O Cruises, which has 6 ships and 1 coming next year. This is a picture of the newest ship coming next year. All right, next slide, please.
Oops, sorry.
No worries.
Too fast.
Okay, next we'll talk about the EPM Cloud implementation at HA Group. Next slide, please. So our journey began for this project, our overall project, back in 2018 with what we called an ideation phase, which included an extensive requirements gathering that culminated in what we called the proof of concept. So we had a working ePBCS application. Also, we've kind of mentioned this before, one of our partner brand groups, CUK, as we call them, Carnival UK, they started this project at basically the same exact time. And there's also a couple of new projects that have recently started at 2 of our other brand groups called Costa and AIDA. So the build phase for our project started in 2019, and which was over 2 years ago, and that is based on ePBCS. So the current licensing bundle was not available whenever we licensed. So we are using what's called Enterprise Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. Our first go live was in February 2020 with 2 of our work streams, which use the financials module and workforce planning module. Mid last year, or early last year, we went on what we're calling our global pause due to COVID, which had a pretty hefty impact on the cruise industry as a whole. Earlier this year, we re-engaged with Argonaut Integral, and we're cruising along at a steady pace with many other work streams, and we should finish up the bulk of our primary application, which is called HPG Fin, later on at the end of this year. Officially, we have two separate pods. One's called HPG Fin, one is called HAP Fin. These work together, but they are separate. HAP Fin is for our HAP Alaska application or group. They have a little bit different dimensionality and things like that, so they really require their secondary pod. Upper left-hand corner, those are our sources. All the arrows are integration, so there's a lot of data movement. And then, of course, our users connect to all these different databases via reports, SmartView, web forms, etc. We have narrative reporting, which connects to both of these pods and is used by just a few of our users at this time. We have a variety of block storage, ASO, and hybrid cubes, and this environment was built for 300 plus users. We have some future enhancement projects that are in the works or that we might consider later: depreciation, CapEx, a detailed what's called crew workforce planning, and maybe someday some free-form planning types if our domain ever gets upgraded to enterprise planning, and of course, lots more narrative reporting. Next slide, please. All right, earlier this year, we had a major milestone at HA Group. We were using FDME prior to earlier this year to do some of our integrations, not all, because of connectivity directly to our ERP source, which is Oracle eBusiness Suite. And earlier this year, we implemented the EPM integration agent, and that allowed us to get rid of on-premise Hyperion altogether. So the symbolism in this picture is undeniable. That's me doing a drop kick on our server, and my buddies Mike and Howard kind of circling up to no good. Next page, please. Okay, this is a screenshot of the landing page of our primary application called HPG Fin. We have implemented a lot of different navigation cards as well as the out-of-the-box ones. So some of these are custom, some of these are out of the box. As you can see, or you might be able to tell, we're also using the Redwood theme, which offers even more functionality. If I click on the Voyage and Ports card there, next slide, please. More things open up. So behind every one of these cards, there's a lot of different forms and sometimes reports. And if I click on the voyage schedule, next slide, please. What we see here is this is what we call our voyage schedule form. And so this is really the primary or one of the primary drivers behind our entire application. What this is made up of is our different ships and all the different voyages they take, and a lot of key drivers about those voyages. So things like sail date and what ports they're going to, and occupancy and crazy things like that. All right, next slide, please.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. This next slide, this is a screenshot of our second pod called HAP Fin. So this is for our HAP Alaska. And it's still being built, but it is in production. We're using it just a bit, but there's a lot of development that just got restarted very recently. So sometime early next year, this one will be fully functioning as well. And data is shared between both of these pods. Next slide, which I think is over to you.
All right, back to me. All right, so I'm going to give you an overview of two EPM Cloud innovations, first being Flex Forms, and then I'm going to talk about Groovy. So Groovy in itself is basically creating innovations as in the software, as well as taking implementers to the next level and delivering their solutions. So talk about Flex Forms first. So what are Flex Forms? So a common request when I'm doing planning implementations is we always get a user or collection of users is, can I just mass upload my data? You know, lock and send, you know, especially when they're coming from an on-premise implementation, lock and send was their favorite function. You know, they just have this aversion to data forms. I can't use data forms because the gray protected areas get in the way. And it just way too time consuming, to get my data into these forms. So out comes Flex Forms. It's been a dream. So it is a blend of the planning data forms and ad hoc. So the rows are unprotected, and you could use native Excel functionality to enter data. So you could cut and paste, you could reorder, you could delete the rows that you don't need. You can also filter the row data. Now the column headers and the POV member settings are protected, so it gives you some guardrails to work with, and so your users are not completely out of control. And also you have the advantage of attaching business rules and smart pushes that can be set for run and save when after they save their data. Now, Flex Forms is only available through SmartView. So you need to open these forms within SmartView in order to take advantage of the features. You need to make sure that you have the latest version of SmartView, so 21.1. So there were, definitely not only, it was released, I believe, back in April, but there were, a few iterations of enhancements that had also followed. So make sure that you have the latest version installed to take advantage of all the features of Flex Forms. Unfortunately, it's currently not supported in Mac and browser version. Okay, so if you haven't seen the magic of Flex Forms, this is just a quick demo of what Flex Forms looks like. So you can see here, this is a form that we created in planning, okay? But it is enabled for Flex Forms. And get my demo going here. So what I could do with this form is I could, after I render it in SmartView, is I can actually delete the columns that, or rather the rows that I don't need, right? And then after I refresh it, you can see that it, basically disappears what I've deleted. But say I wanted to add like a few more lines. Now I could type it in directly if I know the member names, the exact member names or aliases. So is what I'm doing here. Or you could cut and paste the information if you want to. So here I'm going to use US, Finance US and Operations US, and I'm going to give it other marketing. Then, when I refresh, you could see I could, add in, I could enter the values just like a regular form. Okay? So just like magic. And again, these forms are really, really helpful if you have those users that just wants to just upload their spreadsheet directly into the database. Oops, sorry, I was a little happy with the button here. Okay, all right, so just want to let you know, how do you enable Flex Forms? So basically, you need to go into, within the web form designer, you need to go to SmartView options. And then there is a, you need to put a checkbox on this option here called Enable Flex Form. That will enable it. And then additionally, this was actually an enhancement that came out just really recently, is that on the rows, you can see here in the bottom that we've specified, kind of the range, of what that row, of what was the allowable members for those rows. But if you wanted to actually make it completely flexible and include rows, row members that are outside of that form definition, then basically you would click that dimension and you get the dimension properties. And then you have this option here called Allow Flexible Dimension. And then you need to check that. And that will basically enable you to enter data that is outside of this definition here. And so in this case, I have here children of total marketing expenses. So if I wanted to actually put in, like, say, a IT expense or something like that, I can actually, this option actually enables me to do that. All right, let's talk about Groovy. All right, to simply put it, Groovy is just mind-blowing. Network speed is limiting my graphic here. All right, I'm just going to skip that. And it's given us amazing possibilities. All right, so here are really a few use cases for Groovy. So what we love to do is we love to use it with smart pushes, to only push it with only edited cells or edited data on the forms. We use it when we also attach business rules to the forms. We use it to dynamically update the parameters. So, basically it'll take the intersections of the dirty cells or the edited cells and actually apply them to the fixed statements so that your business rules are focused just on those edited cells. We also use it to move data between cubes. We've used it to resolve performance issues where we're in our business rules where we've had steps where we're creating blocks. Sometimes that takes a lot of time. We've actually used Groovy to speed up that process. If you're familiar with strategic modeling, you've probably been already using Groovy because it is used to push data to and from strategic modeling. We've also used it to expand the calculation capabilities of ASO, so to perform those complex calculations. Now, for both HA Group and for CUK, we've actually used it to design their constant currency calculation, which is pretty crazy, to put it simple. All right, we've used it to also do some advanced validations. So perform some validations before actually committing the calculation. So that's pretty cool. We've also used it to do some metadata updates, such as like adding attributes by just, invoking this business rule. And then finally, we've been using it in combination with REST API to allow end users to actually run or trigger admin tasks without actually assigning admin rights to them. We've also been using REST API to trigger DM data management loads to the planning cloud across pods. So many use cases, and really, they keep coming every month. Okay, so I'm going to hand it back to Steve, and he's going to talk about using Groovy and Flex Forms at HA Group.
Yes, next slide, please. So let's start with Flex Forms. So this is an example of a Flex Form that we recently started using. So this is very similar to what Josie was describing. So users can copy and paste their rows and then refresh and then load their data, kind of mass load, but still have some of the guardrails that allow for, not just lock and send as some people might have been used to in the past. And this particular form also incorporates a Groovy rule that calculates only updated cells. So the last time that I saw this run, this has almost 1,300 rows on it the last time that somebody was testing this out. And it took only like 20 seconds to save the data and run a FX currency translation and do a data push. But it only did all those things based on the cells that were in the form. So very, very cool, and works really, really well. Next slide. So other usages that we're using Groovy for at HA Group a metadata management rule. So this is one of the cooler things. If you have implemented hybrid, there are some properties based on especially parent members and things like that, that can also inadvertently drive properties of some of your level 0 members if you just add them one at a time, for example, and forget to check some magical buttons that change their storage properties. So we developed a metadata management Groovy rule that peruses our entire application, every member, every dimension at the same time, and looks for any cases where we have the storage operator that's not set to store at level 0. Because some bad things can happen if you don't have that, and if you have your level 0 storage operator set to dynamic calc. We also recently wanted to create a new hire Groovy rule. So this mimics or uses the out-of-the-box workforce planning new hire rule, but allows via a Groovy to copy paste basically a really long string right out of Excel. And we did this for like 100 at a time, new hires, because coming out of our pause, we had to hire a bunch of people, and still hiring, by the way. And this rule really helped, so that we didn't have to go in and use the out of the box rule, which we have to do one at a time, and which would have taken many countless hours. We have a lot of data movement, Groovy rules that do some complex mappings and running data maps, similar to what Josie had mentioned. We also have an FX constant currency that's under development right now, that's going to be running in our ASO environment. And then also some rules that calculate some other metrics in ASO for reporting. And there's a few more, and we're really just scratching the surface. And we probably, if I had to guess, across our 2 different pods, we probably have at least 24 different Groovy rules at this time. And these are really the highlight ones, because these are some of the cool things we're doing. Next slide. We've already talked a lot about these, but really to summarize, here's some of the benefits. For Flex Forms, really helps user adoption, which is very key, one of the big keys to a successful project. And in my opinion, this helps control the chaos. So in the past, some people have been around different Hyperion implementations where a lot of people just wanted to lock and send. Well, you didn't put guardrails around that. You really had to hone in on security, and then you couldn't do things like run business rules on save, and, members on forums and all those things. Well, Flex Forms is really the best of both worlds, where it's kind of like ad hoc, but it also has the guardrails and other features and functionality of forms as well. For Groovy, Josie really touched on a lot of these. The performance improvements for certain rules that would have taken a long time, like block creation, is very key, and really expands some capabilities for both administrators and users alike. So real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to thanks to on our Holland America team, Mike, Howard, Barb, Jason, Aaron, and Jason across the pond. And our Interroll team, I hope I get everybody that has been involved over the years. Josie, Diana, Mike, Kevin, Paul, Jorge, Emilio, Kenneth, Ricardo, Ron, Lily, Lillian, Ross, Joe, and Joe. I think I got everyone.
Pretty good. All right. Well, this has definitely been fun, and more fun to come.
For sure. Next slide.
Oops, sorry. Okay. All right. So we're at our Q&A section. Let's open this up and see what we got. Are Flex Forms available on-prem 11.2.4? I'm not sure. I'm thinking no, unfortunately. I don't think so. Yeah, it is part of the Smart View, but I have a feeling not. We could get back to you on that, but I'm almost positive that it's not available on-prem. Do Flex Forms work with ASO plan types? Yes. Yes, it does.
Haven't tried that out yet.
As long as it's you're sending data to level 0, it'll work just like a regular data farm, because you could create a data farm in ASO and enter data at level 0. So it's the same way. Can you talk more about how you use Groovy to run data maps? Do you want to try to take that one, Steve?
Sure thing. So Groovy rules, and so I'm not an expert on Groovy, but I'll talk to what I know. Within a Groovy rule, you can actually call a data map directly. Another thing, and I actually failed to mention this, that we've done is you can create a rule that doesn't call a data map directly, but can mimic the data movement of a data map. And the cool thing there is that actually allows your end users to be able to run that rule, because it's not a data map. Because most of us know, or if you don't, end users cannot run data maps, which is good and bad, but I mean, there are certain opportunities where you'd want them to. But so you can actually have a Groovy rule that just pushes very specific data from point A to point B. It's usually from a planning database over to a reporting database or another planning database. So yeah, you can do kind of both. You can run a data map directly, or you can basically write a rule that mimics the data movement of a data map. Right.
And so a lot of that looks like a smart push, basically. So a variation to that is a smart push. But what's cool about this is that you could actually use runtime prompts, right? So even though you defined your data map to certain intersections, you could actually use runtime prompts to actually change some of the parameters of that data map. Okay, all right. What's the best way to learn Groovy? Gosh, there's a whole bunch of ways. Basically, if you have an implementation going on right now, I would sit with really shadow your developers, because a lot of the implementers are using them right now. I think that's the best way to actually start learning it. I think, Steve and his team, they've worked really closely with our developers, and have learned a lot about Groovy that way. There is actually a Udemy program out there, and I think it's fairly low cost, like $35 or something like that. But it was actually recommended by the Oracle developers themselves, and so I definitely would check out that. Again, it's through Udemy, if I said that right. And then I believe Mark Rinaldi, when he, in the 2 presentations ago, when they were talking about tutorials, there are some tutorials on Groovy. So you could start there. I probably would start there, just so that what is applicable to the EPM space, because Groovy is actually a language that is used elsewhere besides EPM and BI.
I'll add a plug for Into Hyperion. There is it's available for Groovy that some folks from HA Group have actually recently signed up for. We haven't taken all the modules yet, but they're good. So good.
Go Kyle. Yeah, we've taken advantage of his content as well. It's very good. Okay, are flex forms in any on-prem version, or will they be in the future? I personally cannot tell. I cannot speak to that. That's definitely a question on for the Oracle side. I have not seen it on the roadmap for on-premise. So gosh, yeah, more information on that definitely is necessary as far as flex forms and and its future on premise. All right, any Groovy libraries on the internet that that you can point us to? Into Hyperion is one. Is what Steve has mentioned. That's a great place to start. A lot of us have actually started there. So, you know, I think when you just Google EPM Groovy, you know, that's probably one of the first things that comes up. So definitely, I checked that up, and then, you know, you can see there's a lot of material. There's a lot of people blogging about Groovy. All right, are Groovy rules to mimic a data map available on-prem? I'm not sure. That one, you know, Brett, I'm going to have to get back to you on all these on-prem questions. I know data maps is available, but I know I don't think Smart Push is fully available yet on-prem. I know it was at some point it was on the on upcoming releases. It might already be there for as far as Smart Push, but as far as Groovy goes, I don't think Groovy is yet available on-prem. Not yet. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Going once. Going twice. No, let me check the chat box just really quick in case you guys had put questions there. Nope. All right. Steve, I think we hit all the questions.
Awesome.
All right, I think we hit all the questions. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us and hearing Holland America's story on their implementation and use of Groovy rules, or Groovy and Flex forms.
Thank you, Josie.
Thanks, Steve. All right.